Picture this. It's a normal Tuesday morning and you stop by your local deli to get a breakfast sandwich. You decide to sit by the World Trade Center and you gasp in awe at the North and South Tower. But 3 minutes after you arrive, you hear a loud crash! And everybody around you screams in terror as they look up at the North Tower and they see a gaping hole right at the top of it. Today in this video, I'll be teaching you about 9/11 and what happened. Also, in the title, we'll have a special guest, which is a survivor of 9/11, which is pretty exciting. Watch to the end and like and subscribe. It's just a normal Tuesday morning and it's 8:30 and it's a normal day for New York and a normal day for Boston. Why Boston? Well, Boston is where one of the planes came from. Flight 11, American Airlines. And it was heading straight for LA. American Flight 11 was a normal flight until hijackers hijacked it, and it wasn't a flight to LA anymore. It was a flight to the New York World Trade Center, specifically the North Tower. The plane was hijacked by a terrorist group called the Al-Qaeda, and the Al-Qaeda was led by a person named Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was a terrorist that was apprehended in 2015. And by apprehended, I mean dead. Right when the plane was hijacked, it headed for New York and struck the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. People thought this would be the end of the attacks, but it wasn't. Fire trucks quickly rush into the scene, coming from left, right, and all their pilots and firemen come out to try to rescue lives. But only 17 minutes after the North Tower was hit, the South Tower was hit. American Flight 175 struck the tower at 9:03 a.m. Once both planes hit the towers, debris fell everywhere. The diagram of where the planes hit and where all of the debris went. Tons of firemen went in and went out, saving lives. But some people didn't make it out because at 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed, leaving only remains of the South Tower. By then, there were a lot of deaths, but a lot of people were saved in the process. The people watching on TV were devastated. They didn't even know if they'd get to see their family or friends again. But it got even worse, because at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapsed, again leaving only the remains of it. This was a hard blow to the U.S., but other things happened too. A plane that was supposed to be crashed in Washington, D.C. was apprehended by the passengers, and they crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, the plane made it, and it hit the Pentagon. But it wasn't a massive fire because it only hit the outside of the building. Today I will be interviewing someone who was actually there at 9/11. Right now, live, I am here with one of the 9/11 survivors. Say hello, and what is your name?
Hello, everyone. I'm John.
Okay, so what happened and what was your feeling and take on things?
Well, I didn't know it was happening, actually. So I was on my way to work, and I worked at the World Financial Center, which is across the street from the World Trade Center. And so I was on the subway, but I didn't know, nobody knew what was going on. They knew that I just couldn't get off at the Cortlandt Street stop, which is at the World Trade Center. So I got off at the Rector, which was one stop before, got out of the subway, looked up, and we noticed that the World Trade Center was on fire. And what I remember distinctly was all the paper that was flying in the air. It was like snowing paper, and everyone was just mulling about, looking at the World Trade Center on fire. It was pretty scary. And then I actually have some interesting pictures of it, and I was getting closer to the World Trade Center But then all of a sudden it collapsed, and that's actually when no one thought it was going to collapse, but all of a sudden it just did. And then that's when I realized I was too close. I was only a few blocks away. And so I remember taking a couple more pictures of it, but then realizing that this big cloud of debris and dust was barreling towards me. And so that's when I decided I better run. And so that's what I did.
John, I have another question for you. Where was your first instinct? Where were you gonna go?
I just needed to get away from there. I was too close. I was only a few blocks away. And so I had to run as fast as I could to get away from the buildings when they were collapsing.
Okay, and where did you go?
So I went south, because that's the only way I could go, really. I went south down to the where the ferry is. And then, but the problem is, at some point I made it south, but then realized I had to go back up north. So I went to the other side of the city, and then had to walk through that cloud again to meet up with my friends in Midtown Manhattan.
So, what was it like in the cloud? Like, what did you feel? Like, did you feel anything at all?
I mean, I was scared, but I was worried about what I was breathing. So I used my shirt to cover my mouth. It was like snowing, so all of downtown was just covered in like a dust. It was like gray, and it looked like it was snowing debris and dirt from whatever was in the World Trade Center, which I know was not good. So it was probably like asbestos and other chemicals.
So, just to estimate, how long do you think was the World Trade Center, like, the event happening for?
I was probably down there like an hour or two. I was just mulling about. When we were down there, no one thought the buildings were going to collapse. It looked like it was on fire, but I didn't think it was going to actually collapse. I think it collapsed like 38 minutes after the first impact. So I was probably there like an hour and a half or so, and then made it down and then walk back up. It took forever though. I think to get out of the city, I didn't get out of the city and back home to New Jersey until like 10 o'clock at night, right? All the transportation was shut down. And so you couldn't actually leave the city. So I met my girlfriend at the time at a house with a bunch of our friends, and we just kind of waited it out in Midtown for like several hours.
Okay, so once you waited out like all the smoke and debris, like what was your first instinct? Like what did you exactly do first?
Well, when I was down there, I was trying to get in touch with my family. So the problem was back then no one really had cell phones. It was like, or the cell phones weren't, it was like old cell phones. And so I didn't have cameras or anything or FaceTime. And all the cell networks were congested. So I was able to call my mom and just let her know that I was alive. And then somehow I was able to get in touch with my girlfriend at the time, and we made the plan to meet in Midtown.
So, right after the World Trade Center collapsed, or like a couple days after, like, what did you do? Like, did you go on like a normal day, or did you like how were you impacted by it?
Well, everything changed that day. So, my work, the building was destroyed. I worked in the World Financial Center, and that was completely. It was the World Trade Center fell on it, so it was pretty destroyed, and so we couldn't go back to the office. So, I worked from home for several weeks, and then at some point we gathered for work at like another office in Midtown, and sometimes we would work out of there. But, for a good week or so, everything was just kind of like shut down.
Okay, so I have one last major big question to ask you. Should you viewers subscribe? Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes. This is the best channel on YouTube.
Okay, guys, you heard that. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you have a good day. Goodbye.